Have I ever told you the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something to change each time, but it never does. Hello, I'm Enzo, and how hard is it to beat Tiny Tina's Wonderlands with only Legendaries? The rules of this run are, I can only use Legendary gear, I will be playing on the hardest difficulty, which is Intense, unless I'm farming a boss or enemy. Myth rank does not unlock until level 40, so I can't use it even if I wanted to. Wonderlands is the first Borderlands game to have complete character customization, and as such I decided to have some fun. I tried to the best of my ability to recreate Delva from Yolkoso. I just wish they had more skin tones to work with. For this run, I wanted to try the Stabomancer because I've never played the class before, and just like all the other challenge runs, the Stabomancer is my new favorite class. Alright, since the early game is always the same, let's talk about Legendaries. The first legendary gun you should be able to get is from Ribula. However, since it's Fevor, I don't know how to say it, I guess it can't drop from him until level 9. So where do I go from here? Well, I decided to suffer through all 3 different ways to get your first legendary weapon in this game. Option 1. Dreamvale Overlook. There's a wheel here that you can spin to get random gear. Normally, you get the currency for the wheel, called souls, from the DLC mirrors. However, it gives you 2 free spins when you first interact with it, which is what I'll be using to farm for a weapon. The only issue? You can only do this once per character, meaning I need to start a new playthrough and work my way back to Dreamvale Overlook to farm this. This took me 14 runs in total. But these aren't normal runs. I had to create a new character and start the game all over again. And after I managed to optimize the route and build, my runs averaged around 20 minutes. What this means is, in total, all these farms took about 4.5 hours to do, just to get my first legendary gun. Option 2. Farm Ribula until level 9 to get a chance to get the Borea's Breath, his dedicated gun drop. It first took 45 farms to reach level 9, and then 15 more to finally get something besides a shield. Yeah, I got 2 shields that were not dedicated drops from him, instead of something useful, like a gun. Option 3. Play the game until I find a legendary gun source. Unfortunately, the first dedicated drop source for a gun besides Ribula is actually the Monster Shroom from the obelisk in Weepwild Dankness. This was actually the first run, but after I realized how far I had gotten into the playthrough, I realized that I was going to start over anyways, so I just decided to farm the gun. The reason the counter is also this high is because I already tried to farm Ribula 25 times before I learned that he doesn't drop the gun until level 9. Alright, for this real run, I also decided to try and farm Ribula for a shield just to have one, but of course, when I actually tried to farm for a shield, I only got a melee weapon, which is useful, but after 40 total farms, I didn't get a shield. I decided to go ahead and collect my loot from the bank in Dreamvale Overlook. But here's the funny part, I added the 14 farms it took for me to get the level 2 gun, but I forgot to add the 2 legendaries to the gear counter. So just pretend the legendary counter says 3 until I update it later. From all that Ribula farming, I was massively overleveled, which meant for quite a while I had to fight level 9 and 10 enemies with a level 3 gun. It also meant that I had to take combat slow in order to avoid dying dozens of times. Just like other runs, not impossible but very time-consuming combat. I decided to choose Clever A as the voice for my character, and I think a lot of the lines fit Delva's character almost perfectly. But one thing I can confirm is elves do not play hard to get. Besides that, combat has not changed a single bit. As a matter of fact, it only gets more difficult as I level up more. Considering how difficult combat has been so far, I decided to go ahead and get the Borea's Breath that I had stored in my bank as well. I knew I had no chance of beating Shadowgrave Burrow without it. But do you know what the funny part is? The fact that I forgot to update the legendary counter. Again. Can't wait to see when I update that, can you? Shadowgrave Burrow was pretty easy until, of course, Zomboss. Every single run I struggle with having to fight Zomboss. She is so insanely difficult for no reason. The Borea's Breath is pretty much better than nothing. And over time, I started to learn how Zomboss's attacks work so I could beat her a little bit easier. Just like all the other challenge runs, of course, it follows the same pattern. Just difficult, slow gameplay, and with a new issue, ammo. I had never seemed to have enough ammo in this run throughout the entire duration of it. I am always running out of ammo, meaning I've had to resort to using my lower level guns most of the time. The most annoying part about Zomboss, however, is the fact that she's the next viable farm for gear. This is because I need a new shield, as my survivability, if you can't tell, is pretty horrible. My guns are decent for the time being, like I said, better than nothing, but I'm gonna need a new shield if I want to keep playing. Oh yeah, I also finally updated the legendary counter if you couldn't tell. This farm gets more difficult as both me and the boss level up. However, I got this insanely non-dedicated gun drop from her. This gun ended up saving me many times later in the run, so this was the single best drop in the entire run, in my opinion. And there's the shield I've been looking for this whole time. The gun was still a nice surprise though. At this point, I've gotten to where I ended my first run, and now it's time to farm the monstrous room at the obelisk again. There's one thing I didn't really tell you guys about farming the obelisks, however. If any of you saw my pre-sequel video, then you'll probably remember Bruce, where you had to kill a bunch of enemies before he actually came out and he was the drop source. Well, obelisks are basically the same thing. You have to clear out waves of enemies and then one difficult enemy will spawn, and they're the ones with the drop pool. I have to say though, for as much as I love Wonderlands, the game hates me. I got a non-dedicated drop from the monstrous room this time, but it was a ring that literally had no useful stats for me. Like, at all. This thing was completely worthless. And I didn't get another ring until the end of the game. So, yeah, I have a legendary ring, but I can't really use it. It's kind of just a space filler now. At least I won't accidentally pick up something else. This game is just full of jokes. The biggest one being, it won't actually give me what I want no matter what. I would like an upgrade to my weapons, but the game decides to give me a class mod instead. I can't really complain considering I will take basically any gear at this point, but still, when am I going to get a weapon? Have you ever heard of the sunk cost fallacy? Well, it's something that well describes a lot of my situations in these legendary only challenge runs. Do I keep farming for a legendary even though I put so much time into it? Or do I just abandon it because I'll probably never get what I'm farming for? And even though I would love to have the Ruby Spite because it's an insanely powerful weapon, I just don't know how much longer I want to keep farming this stupid obelisk. Also, spoiler alert, this is not the only obelisk I have to farm. There will be more obelisks. But after getting a second and now useless class mod, I decided to just go ahead and see if I could beat the Banshee. I'm only a little bit concerned about the Banshee fight, but mobbing is still going extremely well with the combination of this awesome gun and the Stabbomancer's Ghostblade ability. It's really cool. Also, if you hated Skeleton Seers in Borderlands 2, just wait till you play Wonderlands. They are way worse in here. Trust me, they will ruin your life. And Mr. Torg is Megumi from Konosuba confirmed? It's been quite a while since I last played this game, so I kind of forgot how the Banshee's attacks work. I have to say, this gun absolutely slaps. The only issue? The Banshee slaps. Even harder. However, the cool thing about the shield is whenever it breaks, it releases a bunch of homing skulls that deal pretty good damage. That's why sometimes it's a good thing for me to get knocked down. Sometimes. As long as I can stay alive and not go into fight for my life. It was actually a pretty effective strategy for farming Banshee. The fight wasn't as bad as I remember it being. And I could not make a Wonderlands video without showing the single best scene in the entire game. No, the entire series. Blowing up the freaking ocean. I only learned that you could actually unpause the game in picture mode afterwards, but I removed the farm counters for a slightly better view. Still, coolest thing literally ever.
Beautiful! New ocean! I'll see you in hell!
Never liked the thing much anyway. Oh, I will miss seafood though, yeah.
And now I can select my second class, and I decided to go Berserker as a joke. Initially, I thought, alright, it can't be that bad, and in the end it wasn't horrible, but I forgot you cannot change your secondary class until the end of the game, which did make me panic quite a bit, because now I had to make do with what I have. After that beautiful live cutscene, I decided to go back and farm Banshee. She has 3 potential drops that are all incredibly useful to me. A gun, a melee weapon, and a spell. Preferably I would like all 3, but I'll take whatever I can get at this point. Conveniently enough, the first drop was a cryo, or well, frost, auto magic. This gun is really good, but I kinda sucked at using it at the beginning, so it didn't deal that much damage. But it is a great upgrade to have to my current weapon. The second drop I got from the Banshee was the frying pan. This isn't her dedicated drop, but it's still insanely handy to have because it gives me some extra survivability. And it's about time. Almost halfway through the run, only now do I have a usable spell. But this also isn't a dedicated drop. Huh. I mean, I'll take it either way, but the Twister, her dedicated spell drop, is supposed to be insanely good, and I really wanted to try it. Now that we've reached the Notion, we get to fight a ton of new enemy types. However, this introduces my least favorite enemy in this game, coral crabs. I cannot stress enough how much I hate coral crabs. I absolutely hate enemies that can just burrow, but coral crabs are even worse because you have to melee them out of their burrows. I have some past trauma with coral crabs, if you can't tell. Most of the enemies I've farmed in this run are obelisk enemies, which is very annoying, but they are some of the easier farms, and they usually have pretty good loot. I decided to try and farm the Great White in Wartooth Shallows. The only issue is, I farmed him quite a bit and got a whole lot of nothing. I was looking for a new shield, but the melee weapon would have been nice too. This farm took way longer than all the others because my gear was starting, yet again, to show its age. So I finally decided, alright, I might as well try and see if I can kill a chance. Between learning how broken stealth is, having a cryo gun, and having Berserker, the chance is just a joke. Well, he's kind of just a joke in general. This fight is just pathetic. I'm still on the hardest difficulty. Trust me, I checked. Yeah, he kind of just got melted. So, there's that. This means that I can continue on with the story, and there are way better farms than the Great White or LeChance. While I was working on the main story, this skeleton had a better idea. Bring me into an encounter. Now, normally these are pretty annoying, and they can be avoided. He just caught me off guard. However, this encounter was really cool, because I've never seen this level before. I love the lava channels. So, in the end, that actually didn't turn out that bad. Now that I've defeated LeChance, my next goal is to farm Lycia Ironrot for liquid cooling. At least that was the plan. She kinda just dropped it on the first kill, so I'll gladly take that. That's one less obelisk farm I'm gonna have to do. But don't worry, I make up for it later. My next farm is going to be Holsunder. Yes, I'm not gonna try and say his whole name. But my hope is to get a new shield from him, because I've had the exact same shield I got from Zomboss this entire time. And if you couldn't tell, my survivability kind of sucks. For the most part, my drop luck was horrible, but it is this one drop that made it all up. This ended up being my favorite class mod, and something I used for the entire run, and I even farmed for my endgame build. Yes, 30% of my damage to dark magic, which means I can heal. This is insanely broken. Also because one of my skills increases my damage dealt to enemies when they're affected by multiple status effects, which is really interesting, so I will gladly take that. This ended up practically saving the run at this point. The gap of 14 farm attempts should show you guys how this has been going so far. But I got one of his dedicated drops, the Envy, a corrosive Jacobs sniper rifle. I mean, I guess it's nice to have another weapon type, finally. And at long last, I finally got the shield. It is nice to have a shield that has way more capacity than 300. The 80% bullet and arrow reflect chance is nice. However, in this game there are a ton of projectiles that aren't bullets or arrows, so it's actually relatively balanced. Since the obelisk is along the main path in Karnok's Wall, I decided I might as well try it. And even though I wasn't farming for it, of course I get a shield on the first attempt. I don't even have to save and quit. This is just ridiculous. I spent all that time farming crabs that I hate so much just to get a drop when I wasn't even trying to farm her. Awesome. Also, I have to say, the Stabmancer is the most overpowered class in the game for sure. I learned something here. Status effects can crit. Yes, you heard me right. I wasn't going crazy. Status effects can crit. I didn't even know this was possible. It's actually pretty cool. And when you're in stealth, every single type of damage you deal critical hits. Especially status effects, making Stabmancer, and with Blight Collar in my endgame build, so overpowered. I'll be honest, besides most of the early game fights, the Western might have been the most difficult fight so far. This is mostly just because my entire build is a glass cannon at this point. I deal a ton of damage, but I also take a ton of damage, so I had quite a few close calls during this fight. Since I shredded his shields with the liquid cooling, you can only imagine what it does to flesh and bone. And my reward for this battle? Another class mod that's completely useless to me. I also quite enjoy committing tax fraud.
And there you go. You're 1/8 undead. Enough to legally claim it on your taxes.
I also completely forgot that completing this mission also gives you a legendary shield. I think I have enough legendary shields now. Thanks, game. I was also planning to farm the Wastard, but for some reason he wouldn't respawn as a boss. I think you have to do his other mission or something like that, so I just decided to skip all that and go to my next farm, which is the Oculus in Sunfang Oasis, which is hopefully the last obelisk enemy that I need to farm. And it doesn't take too long before I actually get what I was hoping for. It's funny because this is actually the same gun I used at the beginning, but I didn't know that you could actually use the single fire mode to fire a way more powerful shot. So I think the gun at the beginning could have been way better if I just used it right. And even though I really should have gotten the Blight Collar first, the Berserker wasn't a horrible second subclass choice. Especially when I was using frost weapons, mostly the liquid cooling, it was extremely good. The total playtime of this run was, I'd say, around 24 hours. And I only crashed once. And thankfully, the most save point was only like a minute ago. Next up, the Nightmare. I mean, yeah. At this point in the game, pretty much every fight is kind of just a joke. The mobbing for this entire section was more difficult than this boss. The majority of the time spent in this fight was just waiting for the Nightmare to come back where I can actually hit it. It? Is that? Yeah, I'll call it an it. And I actually got a pretty good sword from the Nightmare, which is nice. And then I see this pile of loot, which I have never seen anything like this before, where it's literally all in the exact same spot. Kinda weird. I got a class mod, of course it's completely useless. No surprises there. But then, here's something interesting. There's actually a second class mod below it. As you can see, I moved away because I thought that was it, but no, they were on the exact same spot. But, you know, still useless. Also, I have to say, I absolutely love cutscenes that you cannot skip. Why do we still have unskippable cutscenes in games at this day and age? Who knows? For some bizarre reason, every single time I play this game, I don't know why, I always seem to get this rain arrow shotgun at the end of the playthrough. Or near the end of the playthrough. I don't know, it's just a weird thing that always seems to happen. Maybe it's coded into the game for me. Who knows? But I'll gladly take it because it is one of my favorite shotguns in the game. It is insanely powerful and it helped me a lot to defeat the Dragon Lord. And finally, the Dragon Lord. If you couldn't tell already, between the combination of the Stab-O-Mancer's stealth being overpowered, me having 2 at least decent guns, and of course, the dark magic for my class mod, this fight was extremely easy. I mean, yes, all of the other endgame fights have been extremely easy considering I've always had good gear, but I think this is the easiest fight so far. Yet again, the only annoying point being all the waiting you have to do in between his phases, especially the part with the spectral wyverns. I think that's kind of pointless. I mean, sure, they give you ammo and health, but I mean, there could be better ways to do that that would also take way less time. And I'm pretty surprised that I actually got a legendary from beating him this time. I usually don't get one. However, before I have a chance to collect my legendary, I have to scroll through over 4 minutes of credits. It's not too bad, at least once I get to all the voice actors. This game has a ton of awesome voices, and I love to see all the different people that voice all the different characters. It's just something I quite enjoy. I like things that reference other things or seeing voice actors that voice other characters as well. But still, 4 minutes to get through all the credits, that's a little bit annoying. I think in future runs when I actually do side missions, I could probably make some really cool references with some of the voice actors in here. Just a thought. I also forgot about 2 awesome songs that they play during the credits. Give Me Chocolate by Baby Metal and Critical Hit by No More Kings. 2 of the best songs ever. Obviously, I can't play them here, but I heavily recommend you listen to them. I added 1 to the counter for legendaries. As you can see, I kind of just forgot about making the counters, visible again. I also completely forgot that Butt Stallion also drops loot in this game. I didn't think she did. But here's the funniest part. Another legendary shield. Thanks, game. I don't think I need any more. I have plenty already, especially after painfully farming for 1. No matter how many times I kill Dragonlord, I swear I get literally nothing good from this loot room either. Now that I've completed the main storyline, I finally respect my skill tree and changed my secondary class to the Blight Caller, which I have to say, this combination of classes is both my new favorite and insanely powerful. I finished this run with a total of 163 farm attempts and 26 legendaries. I would say Wonderlands' drop rate is between Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel. Relatively balanced, but also a bit lower than Borderlands 2's drop rates. I also did a ton of Chaos Chamber runs after the main story, as well as some of the DLC, but it wasn't that interesting. I also did a ton of Chaos runs off stream, and I'm at Chaos level 70 now, which is the highest I've ever gotten to. And it's only thanks to this awesome and overpowered class combination. And let me know if you guys want to see me get to Chaos 100 in another video. I think it'd be pretty neat to show off. Anyways, I had an insane amount of fun playing Wonderlands, and this run was very interesting, especially learning about how early you can get a legendary, and all the ways to get your early legendaries. But thank you all for watching, and if you want to support me, please consider becoming a channel member. It helps me out a ton, and members get a bunch of cool perks. It's also just $1. Anyways, this is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out. It's time to start the show. We got it under control. You know our stats are gold and we're ready to roll. Traveling past, slink downstairs, but there's something waiting for us. We make a plan of attack. We're fighting back to back. Gonna have to stash the little slash and hack. They keep on dissing me below dexterity. Wait until they hear the chorus. Sooner or later, the dice land on the table. You know that's what fables are made of. Everybody's saying, oh yeah, it's a critical hit.